Warlord Pryler's cruel laugh echoed through the Ladosian flagship as yet another primitive civilization's agonized screams faded into static, their meager armadas crushed and smoldering. But soon, his next target would be different. Soon, the Ladosians would reach a planet called Earth. And there, Pryler would learn just how hard humans could bite. The Ladosians, an ancient conquering race, had swept across the galaxy for eons. Their massive war fleets ripped through every planetary defense like paper, their advanced technology turning resistance into bloody tatters. Warlord Pryler, vicious and relentless, demanded unconditional surrender from every species the Ladosians encountered. Most, seeing annihilation as the only alternative, submitted without a fight, begging for their lives. But not the humans. When NASA detected the enormous Ladosian fleet entering Earth's solar system, the planet went into high alert. Global leaders scrambled to assess the threat as alien ships took menacing positions in orbit. Pryler broadcast his usual ultimatum: surrender or die. No mercy, no quarter. Earth's governments, outmatched by Ladosian military might, prepared to capitulate. The devastation of resisting such power was unthinkable. Most advised immediate surrender to avoid mass slaughter. But a defiant group, led by ex-Navy SEAL Anthony Webb, refused to go quietly. For them, living as slaves was worse than death. They began stockpiling weapons, training rebels in guerrilla tactics, analyzing Ladosian tech for weaknesses to exploit. Earth would not fall without hellish blood-soaked resistance. Furious at the delayed surrender, Pryler sent a strike force to raze a major human city as punishment. But Anthony's soldiers met the attack head-on in a vicious battle showcasing humanity's tenacity against a superior foe. The shocking, hard-won victory bought precious time. Anthony reached out to budding resistance cells worldwide, and together they hatched a final, desperate plan: infiltrate Pryler's command ship for a direct confrontation. A daring surgical strike to cut off the snake's head. The fate of all humanity hung in the balance. The Ladosians were the galaxy's most dominant conquerors, their power unrivaled for millennia. But they'd never met a species like humans before. They'd never fought an enemy that would never, ever stop fighting, even to the bitter end. Anthony crept through the corridors of the Ladosian command ship, his team close behind. Their stolen armor and weapons allowed them to blend in, just more cogs in the alien war machine. Mike and his saboteurs split off at a junction, heading for the ship's vital systems. Anthony furrowed his eyebrows as he watched them go, knowing the risks they all faced. As they neared the bridge, a squad of elite guards blocked their path. Pulse rifles snapped up, the Ladosians barking challenges in their guttural tongue. Anthony's team responded with a hail of plasma fire, scything through the enemy ranks. They pushed forward, leaving smoldering corpses in their wake, and the bridge doors loomed before them, imposing and impenetrable. Anthony glanced at his soldiers, seeing the fear and persistence etched on their faces. With a nod, they breached the entrance, storming into Pryler's sanctum. The warlord stood at the center of the chaos, his eyes glinting with malice. "So, the primates have some bite after all," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Anthony leveled his rifle at Pryler's chest. "We're not here to surrender. We're here to end this once and for all." Pryler laughed, the sound harsh and grating. "You think you can stop the Ladosian Empire? We've crushed 1,000 worlds, and yours will be no different." As they traded barbs, Mike's voice crackled over the comms. "Anthony, we've got a problem. The AI is adapting too fast. We can't take it down." Anthony's heart sank, but he kept his composure. "Do what you have to, Mike. We'll buy you as much time as we can." The ship shuddered as Mike's team unleashed their daring plan. Consoles exploded, the lights flickering as the power core went critical. Pryler roared in rage, realizing the extent of the human's treachery. In the confusion, Anthony lunged at the warlord, engaging him in a brutal hand-to-hand brawl. They traded blows, each seeking to gain the upper hand. Around them, Anthony's team clashed with the remaining Ladosian guards, the bridge descending into a maelstrom of violence. Seizing a momentary advantage, Anthony pinned Pryler against a bulkhead. "This ends now," he growled, his forearm pressed against the alien's throat. Prylor's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing over his features. "You've won nothing, human. The might of the Ladosian Empire will crush your pathetic resistance." Anthony leaned in close, his voice low and menacing. "We'll see about that." As the ship tore itself apart around them, Anthony rallied his team. They fought their way to the escape pods, leaving Prylor to face the consequences of his hubris. Jettisoning away from the dying vessel, they watched as it erupted in a blinding flash, a testament to Mike's sacrifice. But there was no time to mourn. Anthony knew that the battle for Earth had only just begun. With Prylor's ship crippled, he seized the opportunity to galvanize the resistance. Broadcasting a message of hope and defiance across the planet, he called upon every human to rise up against the invaders. In cities and towns across the globe, people from all walks of life took up arms. They fought with a ferocity born of desperation, using their intimate knowledge of Earth's terrain to outmaneuver the Ladosians. Guerrilla strikes targeted alien supply lines and command posts, while hacked transmissions sowed chaos in the enemy ranks. Yet even as the resistance gained ground, Prylor's retaliation was swift and brutal. The Ladosian fleet rained destruction from orbit, reducing entire cities to rubble. The streets ran red with blood, the skies choked with ash and smoke. In the midst of the carnage, Anthony realized that brute force alone would not win this war. To truly defeat the Ladosians, he would need to strike at the heart of their unity. He began to devise a plan, one that would exploit the cracks in Ladosian society and turn Prylor's own subordinates against him. As the conflict reached a fevered pitch, Anthony gathered his most trusted allies. Together, they prepared for a final, desperate assault on the Ladosian war machine. Success would mean the liberation of Earth and a chance for humanity to forge its own destiny among the stars. Failure would doom them all to an eternity of servitude. The stage was set for a climactic showdown, one that would echo through the annals of history. Earth's fate hung in the balance, and Anthony knew that he would stop at nothing to ensure its survival. The Ladosians may have been the galaxy's most fearsome conquerors, but they were about to learn the true depths of human resilience and tenacity. Anthony Webb crouched in the shadows of the Ladosian capital, his stolen uniform itching against his skin. The alien architecture loomed overhead, all sharp angles and gleaming metal. His team moved silently through the streets, blending in with the crowds of Ladosian officials. They slipped into a massive obsidian building, the heart of Prylor's regime. Anthony's pulse quickened as they approached the inner sanctum. Guards stood at attention, their eyes scanning for threats. With practiced ease, Anthony flashed his forged credentials. The guards stepped aside, allowing them entry. Inside, Prylor's top commanders gathered around a holographic war table. Anthony took a deep breath and strode forward. "Gentlemen, I have urgent intelligence." He activated a data crystal, and horrific footage filled the air. Ladosian civilians screamed as energy weapons cut them down. Prylor's voice rang out cold and cruel. "Make an example of these dissidents. No one questions my authority." The commanders recoiled. One, a grizzled veteran, growled, "This can't be real." Anthony met his gaze. "I assure you it is, and there's more." As doubt spread through the room, Anthony's communicator chirped. Mike's voice came through, breathless with exertion. "We've breached the shipyard. Prototype weapons secured, but they're onto us. We need to move fast." Anthony nodded grimly. "Understood. Get clear." He turned back to the stunned commanders. "Your warlord's crimes go deeper than you know. And now, the people will learn the truth." Across the Ladosian Empire, view screens flickered to life. The carefully controlled media networks sputtered and died, replaced by a flood of damning evidence. Anthony's voice echoed across 1,000 worlds. "Citizens of the Empire, you've been betrayed." Riots erupted in the streets of colony worlds. On the Ladosian homeworld, crowds surged towards government buildings, the air filled with the sound of weapons fire and angry shouts. In the war room, chaos reigned. Commanders barked orders into communicators, trying to regain control. But it was too late. The Empire was tearing itself apart. Anthony slipped away in the confusion, linking up with a group of Ladosian rebels. "It's time," he told them. "We take the fight to Prylar himself." They fought their way through the streets, human and Ladosian resistance fighters side by side. Prylar's loyalists put up fierce resistance, but they were outnumbered and demoralized. Anthony led the charge into Prylar's bunker, plasma bolts sizzling past his head. The warlord's elite guard fell before their combined assault. They breached the final defenses, and there was Prylar, snarling defiance even as they dragged him away in chains. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Anthony watched as Prylar's own people turned against him, revolted by the evidence of his atrocities. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty. The sentence, death. As Prylar was led away to face his punishment, Anthony turned to his Ladosian allies. The real work was just beginning. Rebuilding would be a monumental task, but for the first time in a long while, he felt hope. "We've got a lot to do," he said simply. "Let's get started." Anthony stood before the hastily assembled council, human and Ladosian representatives eyeing each other warily. The fall of Prylar left a gaping void, and competing factions threatened to tear the Empire apart. "We need stability," Anthony urged. "A provisional government with equal representation." Murmurs of dissent rippled through the chamber. A Ladosian general smacked his palm on the table. "And put humans in charge? Never!" Before Anthony could respond, alarms blared. A breathless aide burst in. "General Vortak's forces are mobilizing. They refuse to recognize the council's authority." Anthony's heart made. Vortak, Prylar's ruthless second-in-command, now posed a grave threat. "We need to act fast," he said. "Mike, can you get eyes on their fleet?" Mike nodded grimly. "On it. But if Vortak's rebuilding, we're in trouble." Days later, Anthony pored over tactical displays as Mike's team struck at Vortak's shipyards. Explosions bloomed across the screens as Vortak's fleet took heavy losses. "We got him good," Mike reported. "But Vortak slipped away. Intel suggests he's retreating to Kravos." Anthony frowned. The harsh mining moon could provide Vortak with resources to rebuild. They couldn't let that happen. "Gather our forces," Anthony ordered. "We're taking the fight to Kravos." The assault on Vortak's fortified base was brutal. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as human and Ladosian troops fought side by side. Anthony led from the front, ducking enemy fire as they pushed towards the command bunker. "Cover me!" he shouted, sprinting for the entrance. His team laid down suppressing fire, cutting down Vortak's fanatical guards. Inside the bunker, Anthony fought his way through winding corridors. He burst into the command center, coming face to face with Vortak himself. The Ladosian general sneered. "You're too late, human. This ends now." He slammed his hand on a control panel. Klaxons wailed as the self-destruct sequence initiated. "You'll die too," Anthony snarled, raising his weapon. "A small price to rid the galaxy of your pestilence," Vortak spat. They clashed in desperate hand-to-hand combat. Anthony's muscles screamed as he grappled with the larger alien. A vicious blow sent him reeling, but he recovered, landing a crushing strike to Vortak's midsection. As Vortak stumbled, Anthony saw his opening. He tackled the general, pinning him to the ground. With seconds ticking away, he secured Vortak and raced to the reactor controls. Anthony's fingers flew across the alien interface. Sweat beaded on his brow as he pushed the reactor into overdrive. The facility shuddered, but the contained surge diffused the self-destruct's energy. Hauling a subdued Vortak to his feet, Anthony breathed a sigh of relief. The last major threat to peace was neutralized. In the days that followed, Anthony worked tirelessly to broker agreements between Earth and the new Ladosian government. Trust came slowly, but common ground emerged. "It won't be easy," Anthony told the assembled diplomats. "But together, we can build something greater than either of us could alone." As the first joint human Ladosian projects took shape, Anthony allowed himself a moment of hope. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in recent memory, the future looked bright. Anthony Webb's brow furrowed as he studied the holographic display. The captured Ladosian officer's words echoed in his mind. Commander Votara lives. She gathers strength even now. He turned to face the assembled strike force, a mix of human soldiers and Ladosian warriors who'd embraced the new alliance. Their faces were grim, determined. "We've tracked Votara's forces to an asteroid base in the Hekros belt," Anthony said, zooming in on the tactical map. "Intel suggests she's amassing a significant fleet. We need to stop her before she can launch an attack on Earth." A Ladosian warrior, Krell, stepped forward. "My people will not allow another tyrant to rise. We fight with you, Anthony Webb." Anthony nodded, grateful for the solidarity. "We move out in 6 hours. Get your teams ready." The journey through hyperspace was tense. Anthony paced the bridge of the flagship, running through scenarios in his head. As they dropped out of hyperspace, alarms blared. "Multiple contacts!" the sensor operator shouted. "It's an ambush!" Votara's fleet materialized around them, weapons already firing. Plasma bolts slammed into their shields, rocking the ship. "Return fire," Anthony ordered. "All fighters, engage!" The void of space lit up with weapons fire as the two fleets clashed. Anthony's strike force fought valiantly, but they were badly outnumbered. He watched helplessly as Allied ships were torn apart by Votara's superior firepower. "We can't win this way," he muttered. Then an idea struck. "Helm, take us in close to Votara's flagship. We're going to board her." The ship lurched as it dove through the chaotic battlefield. Anthony led a boarding party to the airlock, his pulse pounding. As they breached Votara's ship, they were met with a hail of plasma fire. Anthony ducked behind a bulkhead, returning fire. "Push forward," he shouted. "We need to reach the bridge." They fought their way through corridors littered with debris and bodies. Every meter was paid for in blood. Anthony's team dwindled as they pressed on, facing waves of fanatical defenders. Finally, they reached the bridge. The doors hissed open, revealing Commander Votara. She stood tall, her eyes blazing with hatred. "So the human comes to die," she sneered. Anthony raised his weapon. "It's over, Votara. Surrender." She laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Fool! Did you think I'd be content with mere conquest?" Votara gestured to a view screen showing the asteroid base. "Behold the instrument of humanity's extinction." Anthony's blood ran cold as he saw the massive particle cannon. "You can't—" "I can, and I will," Votara snarled. "Earth will be erased, and the Ladosian Empire will rise anew." With a primal roar, Votara lunged at Anthony. They grappled fiercely, crashing into consoles and bulkheads. Anthony felt ribs crack as Votara slammed him against a wall. He retaliated with a vicious headbutt, stunning the Ladosian commander. They traded blows, neither willing to yield. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the deck plates buckled beneath them. Through the view screen, Anthony saw the asteroid base erupt in a massive explosion. "No!" Votara screamed. The blast tore through Votara's flagship. Anthony and Votara were thrown to the ground as flames engulfed the bridge. Choking on smoke, Anthony crawled towards a still-functioning console. Votara, her body broken, glared at him with undying hatred. "This changes nothing, human," she spat. "My people will finish what Pryler started. We will never stop until your kind is extinct." Anthony ignored her, focusing his remaining strength on activating the ship's communication array. He had one last message to deliver. "To all who can hear me," he began, his voice weak but resolute. "The Ladosian Empire's path of violence and conquest ends today. We've seen where hatred and fear lead us. It's time for a new way."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.